Hey, David T.S. Wood here, and welcome to my Extra Mile. Great show today. If you want to live with more authenticity, more self-love, self-worth, being more grounded, you're going to love this show. This lady is a best-selling author, and she writes a program and runs a program internationally each year called The Awakened Woman and The Awakened Human for men, women, and teens. So much to learn. So enjoy this show with the incredible Andrea Henkart. And don't forget, subscribe, push like, and get involved with a conversation. We'll definitely see you on the other side. Hey, Andrea. It's great. I can't believe you're in the same town as me, and I haven't seen you because you got through the border, and you're a grandmother of a little tiny prince. How's that feel?
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And to be honest with you, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel. Everyone had this grandma thing. And I was like, I'm not sure how I feel, but it was just looking at him and getting to know his energy. Oh my goodness, I have fallen in love. My heart is just so wide open.
Well, hopefully we get to see each other before I'm leaving for Greece soon. So, well, hopefully we're going to get a glass of wine and a chat.
I'm
Um,
here.
yeah, let's talk about your handle. What you're known for is this idea about awakened women. And I would say that maybe 90% of the people that listen to this show are women. So I think we've really got the right audience for the conversation. Um, do you want to work backwards or forwards? Let's start here. I mean, you know that your age, you just mentioned it. Are you okay if I mention it?
Sure.
65, all right? 65 and probably as vibrant and as present and as grounded and as happy as I've ever seen you. And I've known you for what, 15 years?
Long time.
Long time. So this idea about awakening, when you say the word awakened women, what comes up for you? Why are so many women asleep?
I think there's so much pressure on men as well, on men and women to look a certain way, act a certain way, show up a certain way in our society, whatever culture we're living in. And there's so much pressure, and people, especially women, but I really think men as well, we buy into that, David, and we forget who we really are. And I think especially younger women, they get lost in what other women are doing, how they're raising their children, how they're showing up in the world. And when we can quiet ourselves and really go in and listen, and it's not about even meditating, it's about really trusting ourselves and listening, we can come to a place within ourselves where we believe in our own self. We trust our own self on a daily basis. And we can see the world with so much love and so much joy instead of being bogged down. And that's just a piece of what it means to be awakened.
Yeah, it's interesting though, isn't it? Because they say experience is something you get just after you need it. But even when you look at, if you look at, there's some beautiful Dove commercials which I use at some of my events, especially when I'm training women, of how women see themselves. There's one particular one which I know you're aware of, is where they have a police artist come in. And the person has to just sit there. They don't know what they're doing. The artist is behind a curtain, and he just asks questions about them to describe their face. And then they're asked to go and spend a half an hour with a complete stranger, and that stranger comes in and describes the face to the same artist. And then they put them side by side, and every single woman, when they describe themselves, it was harsh, and they describe the parts of the face they don't like in such negative ways. And the stranger was like, oh my God, she has this beautiful eyes. And the woman herself is saying, oh my God, I've always been told I've got bags under my eyes and how sad I look. So it's interesting, isn't it? The perception that a lot of women, and guys, they have of themselves is just not based on reality. Why do you think that is?
Again, I think it's very societal based. We have the magazines and the media and the competition of what we're supposed to look like, how we're supposed to look, and how we're even supposed to feel. And again, we lose sight of who we are and what our own value is. And I think that when we value ourselves from the inside, we ignite from the outside. And then it doesn't even matter if our eyebrows are sagging or there's a wrinkle or a laugh line or a gray hair or anything like that. We just are who we are. And it's about being able to accept each other in all our glory and all our beauty with all our flaws as well. And that's what I teach in my workshops when I teach my Awakened Women workshop.
Right. And so, this idea of body image, when you look at young girls today, I mean, they're growing up in a world where social media is playing a role. And you go back generationally, it was already hard enough for some girls at school just to try and fit in. But now that they're being exposed on a daily basis to so much on the outside and people across the world, do you think, is social media making it harder for young girls today to sort of, or making it easier for them to close up and to sort of, and put the mask on? Is it happening more earlier because of the exposure?
Yeah, absolutely. It's obvious. I mean, statistics even show that as well. And kids are getting online. And again, it's all about comparing. And we know that comparison is just it can kill you. It really can.
The thief of joy, they say, right?
That's it. That's the line I was looking for, the thief of joy. Absolutely. And so kids are getting online. And again, it's all about comparing and who's more popular. And it perpetuates. But where it starts, David, is with the adults. Because if we show up as the example, then my prayer is the children will learn that, and that will be the ripple effect that happens, that goes on.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because modeling is really how kids learn,
Mm-hmm.
I think, right? And so much of what a child sort of lives into happens before they're 7. Right? So how a mom is feeling about herself is what she's projecting onto her child, right? So those insecurities or those feelings. What is the process when you're leading women to sort of awaken with so many? Because I mean, I've trained over 1 million people around the world, and I always survey people, and so I've surveyed hundreds of thousands of women. And really, most, if you look at the number one thing they're struggling with, is self-worth and self-love. When they look in the mirror, they simply don't love what they see. So what's the first step for you in helping someone sort of awaken? What is that guidance that you give women to help them find this new, vibrant, authentic, light, loving, sexy, juicy kind of feeling that you're conveying?
Yeah, it's about what I do is I put women in groups. Women in circles creates magic. It really does, because women love to talk, they love to share, and they love to go deep when they have that opportunity. And today, so many women are operating more from their male side with business and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that by any means. Excuse me, but it's about finding that balance. So I bring women together so that they can be real, they can be raw, they can go deep. And it's about moving beyond our bios. That's actually the subtitle. It's Awaken Women Beyond Our Bios is what I teach. So, we show up as...
I'm writing that down. I like that. Moving beyond our bios. That's
right.
Very nice.
So it's like, you could say to me, well, who are you? And I would say, well, I'm this and I'm that. And I've been on this show and I've written these books and here's my big bio. And that's great. But who am I really?
I remember when you had your bio.
Right?
When you lived in because you were on Oprah, you've written Cool Communications, which is a, best-selling book. And, you have influential friends. John Gray's a close personal friend. And that seemed to be a lot of what gave you worth at that time. To see that now, that transition, which a lot of women don't ever transition, I've noticed, because, that bio becomes who they are. And they're without it, who are they? Right? That's what we're talking about here, right?
That's exactly what we're talking about. And I remember when we had to write our bio in one of the classes that you taught, and people were turning their, who needed more time, and they would raise their hand. And then you actually said from the stage, well, Andrea needs more time because she's writing a book. And I was just writing my bio, and it's like, okay, who am I really? This is what identifies me. This is what defines me. So over all these years, David, and you've been my number one mentor, so I do have to thank you and honor you for that. I really do. And I haven't completely released my ego. I think some ego is important to maintain. But
I'm not sure anyone really completely releases their ego. I mean,
right.
A nice concept, but I mean, at the end of the day, ego plays such an important role as well, wielded beautifully, right?
Yeah. But it's a piece of the glue that holds us together. It's a piece of the puzzle. So moving beyond that, though, when we're not all those things, who is just David when he shows up? Who is Andrea when she just shows up in all our realness, letting go of all the bullshit? And so that's what I create in my workshops. That's what I create in my friendships with my girlfriends, and in my reach outs around the world, even in my business. It's about just being real and really showing up for who we are and being honest. And
Yeah.
and that's the beauty. It's actually quite simple.
Yeah, well, simple, yeah, and I think is because of, again, wisdom is such an interesting word, right? Um, you know, if it was so simple, I think a lot of women would grasp it. But obviously, a lot of women, because so many people are playing the game, and so many people are wearing the mask, and so many people are being inauthentic, and so many people are not being real. I think that a lot of people are sort of not brainwashed, but they're living in a world that they think this is normal. It's only when they go and do some work with someone like yourself where they suddenly realize, well, actually, no, everyone's feeling the same thing. All these women are suddenly dialoguing and discovering and unlocking the same things and thinking, holy crap, I thought, this is the number one thing I see with women. I thought I was the only one, right?
Yeah.
Living in this world of make-believe. So you put them into groups, you get them dialoguing. What is the revelation? What is the early awakening that you see in these women? Because I'm sure there's a lot of consistent themes that you see, right?
There is, and I teach it internationally every summer. So women come in from so many different countries, and the similarities, it's just beautiful. First of all, pretty much everybody's in tears just because they're so moved. They get so raw and opened. And what women have said is they feel more feminine. They didn't know that they weren't alone, that they never realized how important it was to ask these deeper questions of their friends to create deeper relationships, and just discovering that there's another level of conversation, there's another level of communication, of relating to another person or to another group of women, and being able to trust, not only trust ourselves in being able to share and be real and honest, but being able to trust other women specifically.
Yeah, and that's interesting about trusting others, because obviously, one of my core observations over all these years is that people who distrust themselves often distrust most people around them. It's very hard to.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of that trusting myself. It really does come through that question, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And you could argue, because I go on the principle of 100% of trust 100% of the time, and when someone screws up, I still trust them, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, and if they do it again, maybe there's conversation needed. Look, we can't keep doing this, and I understand that you're probably not out to hurt me or to be like this, but trust is such an important thing. Learning self-trust, because I would say that earlier when I first met you, that was something you were working on, wasn't it? It was something you were discovering, even though you had the accolades, you had the great life, two amazing children who you happen to name, and in such a quest and journey, who have gone out into the world and brought their love and their light. Really, so obviously a beautiful job as a parent. What, for you, what's been the challenge? How did you find self-trust, and how did you allow yourself to more trust other people on the outside?
It was, I struggled. You said it was a challenge. It wasn't a challenge. It was a struggle about trusting. And that was from my upbringing, David. That was just how I was brought up. Not getting enough, not feeling like I was ever enough. And so I had to show up. And again, my bio walked in the room before me, because here I am, but where was I really? So the process has just been living life. It's been listening to people like you, to following people like you, and to just experiencing. And, when I was married for 30 years, as you know, you were friends with my late husband. And when he died in a plane crash, it was a pretty tragic situation at the time. And pulling myself out of the ashes from that whole experience, and really having to reevaluate who I am. What do I do now in the world? How do I show up as a human? What do I need to do? That was a very painful process, until one day, my friend David Wood said to me on the phone, when I was sitting in the dark in my den crying after almost a year of just eating and crying and feeling sorry for myself, and rightfully so, I think, after 30 years, you said to me with so much love, you said, Andrea, how much longer do you want to be in this situation? No, how much longer do you want to
mourn?
Do you want to feel this, is what you said. How much longer do you want to feel this? And I remember saying, quite a few F-bombs to you at that moment, saying you can't understand, you've never lost someone. I gave you all the excuses, and you kept your cool, and you said again, unwaveringly, with love, Andrea, how much longer do you want to stay in this feeling, in this situation? And I took that, David, and that was a pivotal moment for me in my entire life. And I realized that was the moment that I needed to start saying yes. I needed to start letting go of some of my fears. I could cry now. And I'm still working on it. Don't think for a second that I'm suddenly this amazing person that's,
No,
gone through all of
well,
this.
we definitely think you're an amazing person, but there's no illusion that none of us have it all together. We're all making it
Right,
up.
right.
But what happens is, based on the experience that people are feeling right now, and the level of authenticity that you're conveying, and women are pretty intuitive, right? Is to picking up that what you're laying down is real, authentic, and well earned. It was earned in the fires. It was,
Yeah.
right? The phoenix rising from the ashes, as
Yeah.
it were. But, something came up as you were talking there about the label. I'm the wife, which 30 years, the wife, the mother, right? The teacher, and all these labels. But that label of who am I, that question, who am I? And I see that a lot with women where they live into the label and they forget themselves. They lose themselves. Is that part of the problem that happens? I mean, is it societal as well, or is it just ingrained?
I think it's both, actually. And I've seen it, the other workshops that I teach awakened humans, transcending our differences. So it's putting men and women get together in circles. And that's a really cool one, because we break down all the sexual innuendos and feelings to just, again, be real as a man and as a woman together. And then I do it with the teens, and that's called, what's that one called? Awakened Humans, Friendships Without Walls. That's what that was called. So I bring teens together from different countries and different cultures and different age groups between the ages of, say, 8 and 18, which is really a wide range. And we look at, what's ingrained in all of us? How can we all be real? How can we all just be in this place of trust? And I see it in men and women and in children as well in this process. And it's, forgot what the question was now.
I was just talking about the labels, how women live
the
into
label,
the label.
Right. So it's all of us. That's what I was.
Lucky
that's
I
where
remembered.
I
rarely remember the questions I ask.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So that was about living into the labels. I've seen it across the board with everybody. We all have these labels. We all have these beliefs. A lot of it is the way we're raised. It's what we're told by our teachers, by our peers, by our parents, and again, by society. So it's all of it put together.
Sure. Well, I'm guessing that most women listening are identifying with different aspects of this. When we start to talk about the awakening as the awakening process, which, the environment plays such a critical role. How important is that for a woman, is to start to notice her environment and, whether her environment is pushing her deeper into the box or whether it's kind of freeing her from the box, and the roles of the different players in the environment, whether it's parents, which, this blows my mind that when I survey people about lying, because, most people lie, and the surveys show in a 10,000 person survey, a normal person will tell 3 lies in a 10-minute conversation, which is crazy, right? But when I ask about people and their lies, most people say that they lie to their parents. They're not authentic to their parents. And I wonder, why do you think that is? What's your sort of take on this idea that most people just don't show up authentically in front of the people that raised them? They're already wearing a mask in that situation. And we're talking about the greater percentage, 85% of people are inauthentic in front of their own families.
It's true. And it goes back on my work that I did for 40 years with communication skills for parents and kids. And we see it from a very young age. When you see the 2-year-old with their hand in the cookie jar, for example, and the parent says, "What are you doing?" And they say, "Nothing." Are you trying to get a cookie? No. But their hand's literally in the cookie jar. So what happens as we grow up, from the time when we're very, very young, we stop trusting the people in our lives who are the most important to us, because we fear the consequences. When we're really honest, if the 2-year-old said, "Yeah, I'm trying to get a cookie, even though you told me I can't have one," the parent would probably say, "You can't have a cookie, it's dinner time." They might spank them, they might send them to their room, whatever they do. And the kids learn very, very early on that they can't trust, they can't be honest, so they have to hide in certain ways. And that builds, David, it builds from a very young child state to the teenager state, where the lies are really big, where part of it is just the kids having to not be like their parents. That's just part of the job
and
description.
also want to break free from the tyranny of their parents, right?
Right,
Always being told what to do. Yeah.
Right. But even if they have a great relationship, they still strive, we as humans strive to be different during that age frame, that age, during that time. And so the lies build, they begin to build one upon the one on top of the other, until here we are as adults, and we're still wearing these masks. We're still saying my hand's in the cookie jar, but no, it's not. Right. So that's where it starts. That's where the initial wound really starts and builds up to wherever we are in our lives now.
Okay. So someone listening that maybe is not in your group and can't get there, for example, and at the end, I want you to talk again about how people can find you and follow you and come and be a part of this work, because it's really important work. What's some advice, some more things that someone can be doing today as they finish the show to reestablish that self-trust, to reestablish that authenticity, to reestablish an environment that allows someone to awaken, even if they're not necessarily in, a forced environment or a learning environment that I like to create and you like to create?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, not taking ourselves too seriously is really important. Sort of treading lightly, walking lightly, having more fun. That's really, really important. Saying yes more often, being in gratitude. David, gratitude, I find, that's been my salve. That's been my healing grace, is gratitude. Whenever things look really dark, whenever things look really dim, whenever I'm feeling at my worst, I will just switch it around, and literally sometimes I have to force myself to say 10 things I'm grateful for every morning and every night. Before my feet hit the floor in the morning and before my eyes close at night, it's 10 things I'm grateful for. Those things can be as simple as, hey, I've got a blanket on my bed. It doesn't have to be, I've got millions in the bank. It can be so simple, but those acts can make such a difference. Trusting our own selves. There's a voice inside all of us that is actually a really wise voice. Everyone has it, but we forget to listen to it. And we hear everybody else and everything else.
The challenge is there's two voices, right? The conditioned mind voice, which is that little, typically 70 or 80% negative, but that higher self, which is what you're talking about, that intuition, that gut, that heart space, follow the heart, all these things. That's the voice that a lot of, especially a lot of women can't hear anymore. It's there, and it's there constantly because the other voice is so loud. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying. And so it's tuning into that. And the more practice we as women have in just turning the switch up a little louder every single day in our own head, to be able to listen and trust that intuition. That's where my wise mama wisdom comes in. And I'm able to give so much information, especially to the younger women, because I've been able to tune that switch up so much that the wisdom can come out to help them find it in themselves, because they've got it too.
Yeah. Talk about adversity and the role in this, because, you talked about with Reggie, losing him in a plane crash and a 30-year marriage. But that how some people are going through adversity right now, especially, again, I want this to be timeless. So even though this is the era of COVID right now, and a lot of people have lost a lot of things as far as work or direction or savings, whatever. But that adversity, how important it is when you look back at the adversity and the role it's played in you really awakening. And, I always say it's hard to learn something at a picnic, right? The sun's shining, you're drinking a great glass of wine and you're having fun. But, there's a memory there of fondness. But as far as learning and growing and expanding, typically that doesn't play the role. But with adversity and you overcoming and reprogramming, rewiring, how important is adversity to the sort of the real discovery of the awakened path, let's say?
I think it's really important. There's probably the chosen few who have never really had a whole lot of adversity, or they haven't admitted it. But I think we all have adversity in our lives, and it's accepting it. It's when you're in, I'll speak for myself, when I was in it, or when I'm in it, because I have adversity that shows up all the time. I think we all do in different levels and ways. it's the taking the time to be the self-correcting typewriter. I just dated myself there as with a typewriter. But
All the young kids are like, what's a typewriter?
click, click, click. Before computers, guys.
It's that thing by the fax machine, by the VCR.
The cassette tapes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. Do you remember those?
Yeah, I do, actually. So it's being able to reflect on the adversity, to be able to be in it and acknowledge it, and then ask ourselves that question again that you so brilliantly asked me: how much longer do I want to stay in this space? And it's not a judgment. It's not about, oh, I got to snap out of it right now. It's like, okay, I need to be here. I need to be in the place of not knowing. I don't need an answer in this moment. I need to just feel and experience and go deep within myself to find that depth from which I can then grow and rise from that. And that may sound a little airy-fairy or esoteric to some people, but I don't mean it in that way. I really believe that sometimes just not knowing is okay.
Yeah, I don't think it sounds airy-fairy, especially for me, because I mean, like I talk about the three zones: the comfort zone, the uncomfortable zone, the unknown zone. And
Right.
the unknown zone, to live there, it's all about absolute trust, trusting the world, trusting the environment, trusting what happens to be like, you know, because I always talk about one of my superpowers is supreme adaptability. It's like shit happens and I'm going to adapt to it immediately. I won't struggle with it. Struggle is optional. But, you know, a lot of people are sort of caught in a world that they're desperately attempting to change without changing themselves. You know, if the conditions change, I can be happy. If the conditions change, you know, if I get married, I can be happy. But the idea of accepting totally where you're at, this is what you're talking about, right? Is really being
Exactly.
in the moment. And that's a hard place to be if your mind has been conditioned to be in the past of regret and the future of fear, which where most people's minds are going, scared about what's about to come up. And then, did I just not regretful about the past? So what's some of the practices? You talked about gratitude, but do you have other practices that get you more in the moment, get you more present, get you sort of to be in accepting what's really happening?
I do. One of them that I found for me is being in nature and meditating. And for me, meditating isn't sitting quiet in a room trying to make my monkey mind stop for an hour and being frustrated. For me, meditating is being, you know, here in Kelowna, I'm in this beautiful Airbnb, and I'm right across from the lake and a wildlife sanctuary. And every morning I go out there and I walk. And each day I've been watching the wildflower grow and then begin to wilt and die, and a new one grows, or I see a bird's nest and I watch the process. That for me creates so much peace. And I've learned that I need to have that. That is crucial to my well-being, is to find places, moments of just a view, a green tree that I can hug seriously, where I can take that moment. I used to tell parents that when I was teaching my parenting seminars 30 years ago. You can't necessarily take your week in Hawaii to calm yourself, to ground yourself when you have a house full of kids. But 5 minutes alone in the bathroom with the door closed, just taking some deep breaths, that has to become your week in Hawaii. And so if that's the case, like again, for me, it's finding nature, it's finding a place to ground myself. Sometimes I can be in a supermarket line and I'm feeling stressed or whatever's going on in my life, there's something happening. And all I'll do is I'll take some deep breaths, and I literally consciously ground myself in that moment. I feel my feet on the floor. I wiggle my toes. There's a lot going on around me, but I can take that second. Nobody knows what I'm doing. And it literally can create peace in my own body so that I can become grounded and more centered.
Yeah, and that's just really a practice, right? Because in the beginning, it doesn't, you know, it's not something you necessarily get right away, right?
Right?
You know, mind is
Like, I can't do this.
crazy mind, crazy mind. Yeah, talk to us again. You know, we don't have too long left, but I really, and again, we're going to do another show together, which I'm excited about. But talk to me about, again, the women at these events. What do they what's the realization when they sort of start to wake up? What's that realization, and what are they walking away with that they weren't walking in with?
One of the women that's one of the top leaders in my company, as a matter of fact, she came out of one of my workshops, and she said, she was in tears, and she said, I never really trusted women before. I'm kind of repeating what I said before, but she said, I've never really trusted women. I've related so much better with men. And I'm a businesswoman, and that's been my circle. And I've never felt comfortable being this raw and this open with women. And what I realize is I've craved this for so long. So that's just one example. When women walk away, as I said before, they feel empowered, and not to, that word is so overused, but they feel there's something about being a woman, being the person that actually can grow a human in our body. That is our bodies. That is such an
Gentlemen,
amazing.
she's playing the trump card here.
I am, but it's a superpower. We can't do it without a guy, though. That's for sure. But it's a superpower that we forget that we have. And it's not about I'm better than it. We're a better species. It's not, although we are, but it's not about that.
Let's be honest. Let's be honest here. Of course you are.
But it is a superpower, and it is something that we can tap into. The power that we have as women. We do not have to buy into all the chatter that says we have to look this way or look that way. You know, I've been struggling with my weight, I think, the majority of my adult life, and I'll never be a size 2. And you know what? I'll just keep working to be the best that I can be. That's the best that I can do. And I think that if women began to love themselves and embrace themselves as much as possible, I think it would be, we'd certainly set better examples for our children, both boys and girls. And it's so important in our world to create these, to stop the dissension that's going on around our entire world, and create more love, create more peace, create more friendships. That's what's so important right now.
It's interesting. I'm sorry interrupting there, but it's interesting how when someone loves their weight, or, you know, you see someone with, you know, maybe they have a deformity of some kind or whatever, they've got a limb missing, and when they're so comfortable with it, it becomes beautiful, right? It's just that when you feel beautiful, it doesn't matter what the exterior is, the beauty kind of emanates or radiates from within, which is so hard. And I've seen it so often where I've seen someone who's living with something that's really hard, but they embrace it in such a authentic way. And that's what you said, you know, with, you know, the struggle you've had with weight, but just sort of settling into it and loving it. And I think that, you know, because I mentioned it earlier, you're radiating this kind of, there's a presence about you, which is so beautiful. And that is that sort of falling in love with the imperfection, right? Yeah. Versus wanting to and constantly looking for the perfection, which obviously rarely ever comes. And you see the most theoretically beautiful people on the planet that seem the most screwed up anyway, right? Because they're working so hard at being perfect that it's exhausting, and they don't know who they are anymore, right?
That's so true. And I mean, I learned that from you, David. It's about being perfectly imperfect. And again, you know, as one of my great mentors, there you are with all these beautiful phrases that have helped shape me in my adult life here. And that's why I've always called you my big brother, because even though I'm older than you, buddy, I've always looked up to you.
Thank God.
You're catching up, though.
Tapping on 60. Yeah, but you keep chasing away, but it's fine. You know, it's interesting because, you know, as we look about this awakened, the awakened woman, the awakened man, I wonder again about the importance of environment, about, you know, what's another strategy? Because I always look for what's something we can be doing. If someone who's not feeling that, someone who's feeling like they're, you know, surrounded by masks or whatever, what's something they can do as far as their environment? What's apart from, you know, the idea that they can take time to be present with themselves and meditate in a way that just gets them grounded, feeling grateful, and gratitude plays a massive role in that. But is there, what about around people that sort of sap their energy, or, you know, hold a mirror up of their imperfections, so they're always feeling like, you know, judged, or all these kinds of things? What's some tips you can give about that?
That's a great question, because when I was 17, I made a conscious decision to only hang around people that made me happy and added to my life. I don't know where that came from when I was 17, but I remembered saying that to myself. And I've tried, and the word is try there, to live my life in that way. Now, granted, there's been a lot of people, including a lot of my family members, that have not fit that role, where I've had to just be there anyway based on circumstances. And growing up in a family that never really acknowledged me and still doesn't get who I really am, it's been a struggle. So finding people that are like-minded is so important, even when you're surrounded by people who aren't. Even if your coworkers or your family members or your partner in life is not feeding you what you need, find some new people in your life, find a place, find a podcast to listen to, find groups you can belong to that will uplift you and make you feel better, allow you to see what the possibilities are so that we can be more, better, different, to quote our friend Kirk Metz. I love that phrase, be more, better, different than who we are now. And we can find that. There's so much available to us now through technology, being online. There's so many things we can tap into. But it's also being discerning, because sometimes people are so, I find that sometimes people are so concerned about, well, these people are not serving me. Where do I need to go? So they're jumping from here to there, and they're trusting every shaman, every guru, every coach, who sometimes haven't had enough life experience of their own to be the best guru, shaman, coach for them or anybody. So it's being discerning as well. And how can we be discerning? Again, it goes right back to trusting ourselves. It's trusting our intuition. It's listening to the positive inner voice, and trusting our own instinct. Sometimes the first instinct that we have is oftentimes the best one in that moment. It doesn't mean it can't change the next moment or the next day. Like when I said to you, I'm not going up in your plane, and I was chicken. Well, I changed my mind. I dare you to get me up in there. Just bring me a barf bag. But that's another conversation.
What was that? Just what?
Just bring me a barf bag just in case.
Oh, you'll love it. That's interesting, though, how most people's reactions are often, you said earlier in the show about, the word yes, because, for me, my favorite word is yes, and both. Do you want to do this or this? Yes, and both. Let's do both. Let's do as much as we can. But that yes, even embracing the yes, can radically change a life, because so many people say no before they've even, the no comes out so fast. And because we go to the default mode, I can't afford it, I don't have the time, I'm scared, all these defaults that come up. Whereas the experience itself, every single person who said no to me about something, when I've led them through an experience, at the end of it, they're like, oh my gosh, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever done, or that, because it takes them so far outside of what they know, and they survive. Yeah. Incredibly, they survive. They don't die when they get outside their comfort zone. What's your sort of like this chapter, 65, it's the new 40, but it's, obviously as someone who is healthy, in other words, you've always looked after your nutrition and the inside of your body. What's this next chapter? As a grandmother now, suddenly the legacy, and I'm sure this won't be the first grandchild you're going to have, the only grandchild you're going to have. But talk to me about, what's this chapter looking like? What's your new chapter going to look like? What's something you're excited about for the vision of your life in the future?
Part of me wants to say, my first response is, I don't freaking know.
Good.
And the caveat to that is, I'm absolutely open to anything and everything, discerning anything and everything. And so I don't have to be honest, I don't have a specific plan. I've never been one to set my 5-year, 10-year goals. It's just like, I am just open to what's coming my way. Of course, I have some ideas. And now having this, he'll be 4 weeks old tomorrow, my first little grandson, Jax. I just got goosebumps saying his name, staring into this little being's eyes and wondering who he is and who he's going to be on this planet, and who he's going to be in 18 years from now, when we have no idea what the world or technology will look like. I feel like I have such an incredible opportunity to be able to take his hand and guide him with what I know, and also be so open to learning what he doesn't even know yet. And that's very, very exciting to me. Also, David, I love to travel. I literally live to travel. It's what excites me. It's what ignites me. And when I travel, I buy a one-way ticket to wherever I'm going. And I usually have an Airbnb or a friend to stay with, and everything else just unfolds from that, which is really different than the girl who was sitting on the couch almost 9 years ago when you said, come to the island. And I said, no, I can't go. And so now it's wherever, it's not wherever the wind takes me, but it's whatever is easy and effortless, I find is really the right path. And I am absolutely ecstatic about where the future will take me, but I don't know where that is. And that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? That that philosophy, because I remember when you came down to Belize, it really touched your heart, and and you came to the program I was running there, but then you ended up getting involved with the community. You ended up raising money for the schools, and what was it, Shades and something? What was it called?
Swing sets and shade trees for Belize.
Yeah, so you went to each of the schools and created playgrounds and shade,
Yeah.
because these kids are out in the sunshine all the day without a real beautiful setting to go to school in. But that's that sort of the wonder of the moment is, you're in there, but once you get there, being open to all the possibilities. And I think of all the lives you touched through that program, and how well known you became in Dangriga and other places in Belize. With that being said, as we're sort of getting to the sort of the end of this, what's a call to action? What's something you'd like, as someone's listened to this idea about awakening, whether you're a guy or a woman? Obviously we focused a lot on women. And what's interesting, they talk about how do you change, like when you look at Africa, or you look at India, you look at places in the world, and you say, how do we change some of the things that are happening there? Well, the number one way is to educate a woman, right? Because a woman's going to have well, that's what they say, right? That women are going to have the boys, and they're going to raise those boys in a certain way. So the more educated that person is, the more wisdom she can impart, and the more we can change a society that maybe is, maybe doing things. So, that being said, what's something you'd love to have or practice, or just a mindset, anything you'd like to share as a call to action for anyone listening right now?
If I could do anything, it would be to empower men, women, and children, David. I mean, if I could wave my magic wise mama wisdom wand, and I would love to fill everybody's heart with love. And I know, again, some of these ideas just feel like, oh, she's just filling us with love. How cool is that? It's a mindset. It's like when you share on your in Instagram and in Facebook, all the people whose lives you touch, just because you enjoy doing it, not for any other reason, but just to reach out and help and serve and benefit other people. What if we were all to do that? And especially during this time of COVID, when we're wearing masks, we're not wearing masks, it goes back to that idea of the mask. Where we walk around, do we pass people and say hello as we pass them on the street? You've always said in your workshops, just say hello, hello, hello. Just go up to someone and say hello. And I do that, David. I absolutely have implemented that into my life, where I will walk down the street and I say, good morning. And people are walking their dogs and they've got this sour face, and they'll look up, and most of the time I get a smile back. And I often wonder, where does that smile go? How far does it take that person and the next person? And what's the next act of kindness that unfolds and unveils from me just saying hello? So if we all could do that, if we all could move out of our own shell, take off our own mask, even in those days when we're not feeling it, because granted, we all have those days. But if we were to find that place of generosity, of love, of kindness, to ourselves first, and then sharing that with someone else, or sometimes sharing it with someone else helps us find it within ourselves. That alone, that simple act can actually change the world. I really do believe that, David.
Well, yeah. And, I think that as a practitioner of many of these things we're talking about, the power of kindness is so underrated. And, if you live in a consciously kind place, then every moment, it doesn't matter what you're driving down the road, whether you're, walking down the road, whether you're walking out of a neighborhood, that you notice, that you see, and it becomes apparent where you can serve or give or smile or help or do something out of the ordinary, and that ripple. Because, I know from experience that little moment. I mean, I was driving down in the neighborhood, and I saw one of my neighbors had a great big trailer of dirt to unload, and he was redoing the grass in front of his house. And I also noticed something about him, that his back's not great. So I just pulled over and I said, hey, back up. And I just went to work, and I just did the whole garden for him, and I just said, you can do the raking and I'll do all the digging, but I don't want you. But, I got sweaty, I got a little dirty, but it took maybe 40 minutes, maybe less. because I went really hard at it. But that was just the observation of, can I help in that moment? But, you know, every time I drive past that house now, there's this deep connection that we have, and I can see it in his wife and I see it in him. There's this energy that now there's a bond. Maybe it's a bond. I don't know. There's something there that's very, very special, and it lives here now, and it's never ever going to go away. And there's always going to be that understanding that as I ride by, whether it's on my motorbike or the car, they always reach out waving, and there's this beauty. And that's what we're talking about really, is that the power of kindness. I think that's a beautiful concept, is for us to say, okay, in which ways can I be kinder today? And how can I serve somebody unexpectedly, a stranger, a neighbor, a friend? How can I do something that allows someone to feel that kindness? Would that be our homework then?
That really is. And may I share one quick story about that,
Yes,
David, just to drive it home?
This is all you. This is all you, Andrea. This is all you. You can have as much as you want.
I'm one of the very few Americans that have been able to cross the border into Canada during COVID. And I'll just share this quick story. I knew my grandson was being born. My daughter wanted me at the birth, and there was nothing that was going to keep me from going. We decided on a Friday, and on Monday, I got on an airplane, May 25th. I had to pack. I had to get papers in order. They're not letting Americans through. And there's only one flight a day coming from San Francisco to Vancouver and then to Kelowna. And the alternative was, if I don't get through, I would literally have to stay in airport jail overnight, because there's no flights for me to catch to go home, and they wouldn't let me out of the airport, and you can't sleep in airports, the lounges are closed. So my determination was clear. I got everything in order in just a couple of days, and I got on the plane, mask, gloves, the whole nine. And when I got to Vancouver, I had to go through 4 touch points of Border Patrol. And each one, they let me through, and each one said, we're not letting Americans through, go there. We're not letting Americans through, go there. And each time, I didn't know if I was going to be stopped and not allowed through to be at the birth of my first grandchild. And the last stop was detention. They sent me into a line, and there was a woman there with her bulletproof vest and her burly attitude, and she looked at all my papers, and she said, what makes you think you can get through? We're not letting Americans through. Go sit over there. And she sent me into this vast room. I'm in detention. She sends me to this vast room. It was moments that I was sitting down. And I knew in that moment, airport jail I wasn't scared of it anyway. I thought this would be a cool adventure and a great Facebook story. But so I wasn't afraid of it, but I wasn't considering it. And I sat down and I thought, the only way I'm going to get through is love and kindness. And so in that moment, I sat down in that hard chair, David, and I swear to God, all I did was embody love and kindness into my own body from head to toe with every cell of my being. I just had to infuse myself with it. And then I literally whooshed, sent it out into this entire room with all these guards in their bulletproof vests standing around, and a few other people sitting there in detention, freaking out, crying, whatever. And all I did was send love. And then I got called by this very tall, burly man. They're all burly in there. This very tall man. And he goes like this, come here. And so I walked over, and I felt like a Care Bear or something. My heart was just like big and red and just shining and pushing towards him. And he said, walk this way. Like I couldn't walk the normal way. He was being controlling. I had to walk that way. And I walked up and I just thought, I actually thought of you. So thank you again, my dear friend. And I decided to be even kinder. And I said, so how are you today? You know, what's going on for you? How's your family? Are you guys staying safe? You're talking to a lot of people. I just started a gentle, kind conversation. And he looked at me. He looked at my papers. I swear to God, he looked up at me. He looked me right in the eyes. And he said, we're not letting any Americans through. But you are so kind, I'm going to make an exception. Walk that way. And he sent me out the door.
Yeah. I remember you texted me from just after that happened, and it's so beautiful. And for me, listening and observing, because I practice this every single day, it's absolutely, for me, it makes absolute sense. For someone else sitting there thinking, oh yeah, because the distinction was the other people crying and upset and angry and projecting. So what happens is they're projecting an energy that these big burly people have to defend themselves from.
Yeah.
And so, it's not just their bulletproof vest, it's their, they also, a lot of people don't like conflict. So even in that situation, when you see a family devastated and they want to go, and that's where, one of the practices is when everyone else around you is behaving a certain way, if you can channel and get into that place of absolute kindness and presence and detachment, because you actually detached, which is really, really critical. You can't just this thing doesn't work powerfully if you're in this kind of projecting kindness to get something back. You got to project the kindness and just flow with what happens. So if he had said, love, I'd love to let you in because you're so kind, but I can't. It's your ability in that moment to discover your true power is to flow with that, and be able to dance with that, the rejection. But because it's so powerful, what you just described, quite often people succumb to it in a way they'll say, I hear this all the time. I never normally do this, or I would never normally do this. However, and they don't often attribute it to kindness in that way, but there's something they're feeling that most people don't project because we're so self-absorbed. We're so, thinking about ourselves. And the fact that when you genuinely ask that guy, how's your family? Are you staying safe? You're seeing a lot of people. And if it's coming from the well of intention of real authenticity, they're going to feel the subconscious mind picks up on it. And I'd love to we could do a whole show just on this, on the transmission of positive energy and how that unlocks and creates this magical force. And I know I'm sounding woo-woo now. We're both sounding woo-woo, but this magical force where everything goes right. And then when it doesn't, because you're so detached, it feels like it goes right anyway, because if they'd have turned you left instead of right, a new adventure would have opened up and you'd be writing about this amazing person or this amazing thing that happened or how it led you to a revelation or revealed something that's staggering. So either way you win. The lottery's there either way, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, 100%. That's why I said if it was airport jail, it's like, okay, there'd be some cool selfies in there.
Exactly, with these big burly men. And we know you like big burly men.
Stop it.
It's been a while. It's time. Okay, so with that being said, listen, we're at the end of the show. I just want to remind everyone, first of all, Andrea, thank you so much. Beautiful. I'm looking forward to our next show where we'll get into your home base, global business that's really allowed you to have freedom, and the amount of years that you've been doing it that's allowed you to say yes and travel and contribute in the way you do. So thank you so much for that. And congratulations on being a new granny.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Do you have a little term? I mean, what do they call you in your culture? Is it granny, grandma? What do they call it?
It's just grandma or Grammy for the moment. It depends on what he calls me. I don't know. I'm open to anything. I don't have an attachment to it.
Exactly. Well, with that being said, remember the show is about My Extra Mile. It's about those small incremental things you can do on a daily basis that can allow you to amplify, to bring more juice, to have a more beautiful life. Again, just one little tiny action at a time. So we'll definitely see you on the other side.